3 weeks ago, I buried my mother-in-law in the garden. Don't worry. I haven't killed her or anything. She's not dead. She isn't exactly alive either. Strange, I know. It's tough to explain, but I'll do my best, since I'm still trying to wrap my head around the last few months after she moved in with us. Let me take you back a little. My wife and I have been together for 15 years, married for 7. All throughout our relationship, I've always had a positive connection with her parents. Her mother, Hazel especially. She is truly a gem. She's always been super involved with our 2 daughters, 4 and 7 years old. She dotes on them constantly. She spends hours playing with them in the garden, pushing them on the tree swing I hung way back when my eldest was a toddler. She is the world's best grandma, that's for sure. Hazel is retired, and because she doesn't live too far away, a 20-minute walk thereabouts, on many occasions I would return home from work and find her sat with a cup of tea on our living room sofa. She would have kindly spent the afternoon doing a few chores about the house. The ironing would be done and neatly put away, floors mopped to a shine. The bedding was changed and washed. She is always on the go and in a great health for someone in her mid-70s. Other than some mild arthritis in her hand that flares up during winter, she is fit as a fiddle. My wife's father was great too. He was, at least. A lifetime of cigarettes, a bad diet, and zero exercise added 20 years to his actual age, and he passed away almost a year ago. I think that's why Hazel liked to spend so much time with us. It's a break from the loneliness. Sure, there were times when my wife felt that her mother's presence was a little too excessive. Like those sunny weekends when we wanted to enjoy some quality family time together, just us. Hazel would arrive unannounced, pull out a reclining sound launcher, and plant herself outside on the grass. She would stay all day soaking up the sun and watching the kids play. "Warm enough for you?" I would ask, as I delivered her a 3rd glass of cold lemonade. "I could stay out here forever," she would reply. She wasn't lying either. She often joked with us about building an extension or a small summer house at the back of the garden for her to live in. It was obvious she was becoming increasingly lonely, and those passing comments about her moving in with us soon turned into serious discussion. It didn't bother me. I loved having her around. And since she was practically living with us anyway, we decided to convert our spare room into a bedroom for her. The arrangement worked out well to begin with. She was there to collect and entertain the kids after school before my wife or I got home. The house was always tidy. She was very house-proud and was constantly pottering about sprucing things up. Having her there full-time was great, especially when we needed a babysitter for the nights out with friends or an impromptu trip to the movies. As weeks passed, we began to observe some changes in Hazel that only became more unsettling. Some small things at first. She began to complain about constant back pain. She was always stiff and would lumber around the house like a shuffling bag of eggs. The painkiller didn't touch it. A brand new mattress didn't help it either. We also noticed several warts develop in quick succession on her fingers. Her hands already bore the visible marks of arthritis. Her knuckles appeared to have doubled in size, resembling knots in a rope. The onset of warts only accentuated her appearance. A few applications of at-home spray treatment temporarily removed the warts, but they repeated within weeks, larger and meaner than before. A month later, they had spread further to other toughened areas of her skin like her elbows and knees. The soles of her feet became dry and cracked, her heels essentially crumbling away beneath her. She would leave dusty trails of skin whenever she would walk barefoot. Lesions developed which often became infected. My wife would soak her feet nightly in water with a moisturizing solution. She would later apply wads of petroleum jelly and wrap them up in cotton bandages. The next day, when changing the bandages, we discovered something inexplicable. In the dark crevice between her toes, small growths had suddenly appeared, similar to those seen on potatoes that were too far gone. It wasn't just physical changes that plagued Hazel. She also underwent a series of unsettling mental shifts. We noticed she would slip into prolonged trance-like states where she would abruptly stop whatever she was doing and freeze like a statue. It was eerie to witness, but the kids would joke about it. "Grandma paused again," or "switch her on and off again." Sometimes midway through conversations she would suddenly stiffen up, rooted in place, as if her limbs were grabbed by rigor mortis. She began to sleepwalk. On 3 occasions I woke in a chilling night and discovered the back door leading into the garden wide open. I found Hazel stood out there in the darkness, vigorously massaging her toes into the earth, digging deeper and deeper into the ground in constant repetitive action. She must have been out there for hours. In the end, I would lock the door and take the key to bed with me. One of the most peculiar transformations was her height. Typically, as people age, they shrink for various reasons: bone density, aging muscles and joints. Not Hazel, though. She began to grow. It was slow, almost imperceptible at first. We spoke in the kitchen for a few minutes before I realized that I needed to raise my gaze ever so slightly to meet her eyes. Weeks passed and Hazel's height continued to increase as she experienced rapid and uncontrollable growth. My wife spoke to the doctors almost daily. Blood work and scans revealed excessive levels of growth hormones and a rare pituitary tumor that was responsible. What's also odd is, for weeks during this period, my wife and I would hear strange, intermittent, creaking sounds from somewhere in the house. Noises similar to those usually heard at night when homes settle and floorboards or door frames swell and shrink with changes in temperature. Strangely, creaks we heard sounded closer in some way, as if emanating from something in the room. Then, one evening, I slipped out of my bed, headed toward the kitchen for a glass of water. When I heard the familiar creaking noise as I stepped out into the darkened hallway, I paused, listening for anything that shouldn't be, and when I heard it again, I realized it was coming from Hazel's bedroom. I slowly pushed the door open and peered inside. Hazel lay in darkness, like a skeleton in the moonglow. Her feet and shins protruded over the edge of the bed frame. Although she had lengthened significantly over the week prior, I wasn't surprised at how tall was she now. She had outgrown all of her clothes almost a month ago. Her bare forearms and gaggling fingers hung over the sleeves of her cardigans by several inches. Creak. There it was again. I moved closer to sleeping Hazel and listened to her breathe. When it happened again, it dawned on me. The cracking sound was coming from inside her. I was reminded of bamboo which can grow over inches an hour, and if you listen closely, you can actually hear it stretch toward the sun. This is exactly what was happening inside Hazel. The source of the soft creaks that plagued us for weeks was actually Hazel's bones expanding within her. I glanced up at her face and saw Hazel's pale, sunken eyes staring back at me in darkness. She slowly put a long, gnarled finger on her cracked lips and whispered, "Shh." Then she quickly gripped my arm, her long fingers encircling my wrist like twisted branches. I recoiled, pulling free in a heartbeat. Hazel slumped back, quickly taken by sleep. I returned to my room, hoping that coming morning Hazel wouldn't remember a thing about it. When I saw what looked like wood splinters embedded deep beneath my skin on my arm, they were exactly where she had grabbed me. Hazel's words continued to multiply, many fusing together to create huge, unsightly areas of calloused bark-like tissues that dried and hardened all over her body. Styes formed on her eyelids, enlarging and seeping a thick ricin-like substance which also hardened, soon replacing her facial features with a textured, husky shell. She also continued to grow faster and taller. I went to bed late one evening, and as I quietly crested the top of the staircase, I saw Hazel shuffle out of her bedroom, ducking under the doorframe as she emerged into the hallway. I watched, unseen, as she slowly moved into the bathroom like some fantastical forest creature, hunched high against the ceiling. Hazel appeared to have physically become the elongated shadows our bodies cast when the sun dips low enough in the sky. It was clear Hazel's transformation was becoming more and more aggressive. We spoke to more doctors, who explained Hazel had an extreme, rare condition called epidermodysplasia vericiformis, also known as the tree-man syndrome. In Hazel's case, the condition was sadly both untreatable, irreversible. This, along with rheumatoid arthritis and several elevated growth hormones, is what was responsible for enlargement and stiffness of her body parts. Her limbs eventually grew and distorted to such a degree that it was impossible for her to move from room to room. Her toes extended into a complex tangle of a root-like formation. Hazel eventually stopped moving and talking completely. Her freakishly elongated frame was seized by total rigidity. Unable to move or speak, we didn't know what to do or how to help her. But Hazel's fondness of the garden was always in the forefront of our minds. For that reason, I decided to start digging. Armed with a spade and fork, I set about loosening the soil in the garden. I chose the sunken spot exactly where I found her standing during her sleepwalking episodes. It took hours to dig a hole wide and deep enough to stand her inside without her tipping over. I backfilled the hole, leaving Hazel positioned upright like the tree she had unmistakably become. It's been almost a month now since I planted her. A few days ago, I tied a rope swing to one of her arms that thickened and extended outwards. I'm watching the kids play on it now. Hazel always loved it out here. I'm glad you listened the whole story to this point. Even though lots of my followers are Turkish, I am glad you are watching also. It's been a long time since I posted here. If you come this far, please consider leaving a like and a comment. It truly helps a lot. Until next time, sleep well.